Hey, Graham, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Lily.
What is your view on the circular economy?
I think the circular economy is imperative, especially when we're talking about future business models. We've got a world that is depleting its natural resources and then balanced up with a bunch of man-made products and materials that are either not being reused or not being reused well enough. And so the world where we work on a circular economy of take it from the ground, use it and put it back in the ground is imperative, certainly for the existence of the planet and obviously the human race.
Where do you see there was value in our stakeholder workshop?
The workshop was tremendous value. Managing to get a cross-section of the entire textile industry from industry bodies right through to retailers was critical. What we saw on the night was, excuse me, connection and conversations. These are the connections and conversations that we would think would happen often in the textile industry, but very rarely does. Often it's siloed within sort of maybe the manufacturers talk to each other, then the producers talk to each other, and then the designers and the retailers talk to each other, rather than the whole line. And I think that's the one thing we certainly noticed, and it's the thing we need to look ahead towards, is identifying those interconnections that aren't obvious or aren't being exploited and building upon them. And I think they're the sort of things that we understood and saw when we did the workshop.
Great. What do you see is the value of building internet connections in a complex system, such as fashion and the textile industry?
Yeah. So the textile industry, I mean, even on a base level, is really fragmented. It's made up of so many parts. And it operates in a fairly traditional way. And I think the opportunities that are there, people don't see because they're already either used to doing it a certain way, or because it's so hard, or they can't work out how they can connect with each other. So I think the future industry has to develop a new set of workflow and principles. And the circular economy is definitely the driver of that. But then drilling down within that to find out what those interconnections, and basically, I think what we need to do is keep it as a really simple system. At the moment, it's quite complex, and it's only complex by the many moving parts that don't interact together well enough.
Moving towards a circular economy in the textiles industry, where do you think there is space for people to adapt and emergent properties to happen?
I think let's think about this from basically three particular points. The first one, new materials, technology, and consumer behavior. From a new materials point of view, working within a circular economy, we start thinking about using different cellulose materials than we traditionally use. So expanding out from that. So thinking about other types of plants, fungi. Also think there's an opportunity, well, there already is an opportunity for us to start thinking about other living organisms. So using algae in various forms, whether that's in fiber or in dye. To be able to access those is where we have to think about the technology, and technology is becoming, it's part of everyday life, but it's thinking about that technology and how we might use that in what's been pretty standard textile industry. And then the third thing I think is consumer behavior will help drive us towards more sustainable clothing. I think everyone on the planet is becoming more and more aware of and diminishing resources. And when there's more and more designers and supply chains creating product that is more sustainable, then there'll be a large uptake from that point of view.
How do you think interconnections will play into adapting to a circular economy?
Circular economy is made up of resource flows like emergence and self-organization. I see consumers as the principal drivers towards that circular economy within the textile industry. And that'll happen once sustainable brands begin to really enter mainstream production. I think that interconnections and circular economy absolutely go hand in hand. And one way of thinking about it is, let's think of a circular economy as a playing field, and all the components of the textile industry are the players. the more in tune they play together, the better the game, which is the future textile industry, and it's played better. So if we can get the components interacting much better with a common goal, which would be circular economy, then the emergence and the adaptation into a future textile industry will happen pretty quickly.
Fantastic. Great. Well, thanks for joining us today, Graham.
Thanks, Lily.